From giving us more lore to making the Springlock failure scene even more brutal, the Fnaf movie novel is a must-read for all Fnaf fans. The real question is, what is the difference between this and the Fnaf movie? Today we are going to discuss all major differences between the book and the movie, so let's dive right into it. Now, some parts of this book are loosely based off of the first Fnaf movie script, which changed around a few lines and had a few things added. But the first thing I want to get into about this is the characters, and it actually gives MatPat's character a little bit more depth. Yes, MatPat's character, whose name is Ness, is in this book. And in the book it is mentioned that Ness is Sparky's son, and Sparky is the owner of the diner. In terms of William Afton and Vanessa in this book, it definitely goes a little bit darker. In the movie, it's implied that William somehow abused Vanessa in the past. In this book, it's even more heavily implied. I mean, Vanessa is even more traumatized in the book than she was in the movie. She is just shaking with fear whenever she even thinks of him. We also learn a little bit more about Mike Schmidt. We learn that his dream job is to be a construction worker, and at the end of the movie, he gets a job as a construction worker, which is his dream job, and Tim and Abby look like they're gonna have a happy future. The next thing I want to get into is the kills. They wrote this book with an R rating in mind, I believe, at least in terms of the kills. But let me tell you, if you thought the cupcake was brutal in the movie, you haven't seen anything yet. You know what, matter of fact, let me read to you what the cupcake did to that one guy when they broke into the pizzeria. The truth was, Carl no longer had a face. The cupcake had burrowed halfway into Carl's head. The bone structure of Carl's face was obliterated, and the cupcake was still going. Hot diggity dog. I gotta say, that's probably the most brutal kill in this book. Also, later in the book, when Mike Schmidt finds the bodies, he sees that his whole face is gone. You can see into his brain, and parts of his brain are chewed up. Ugh, that's disgusting, but also is a kind of brutality that I would have loved to see in the Fnaf movie. The other kills are relatively the same. Now let's address the third act and the iconic Springlock failure scene. This is way different than it is in the movie. William Afton relatively had the same lines, except he never said, "I always come back." Instead, he says, "I killed you once," Afton said, his voice strained but strong inside the rabbit head. "I can do it again." So we don't get his iconic line in this, but that line is still pretty good. And also, let's talk about the brutality of the Springlock scene in this. So it plays out relatively the same. The cupcake lunges at him and then bites a piece out of the suit, except this time, the cupcake bites a piece out of where his heart would be, basically, out of the suit. And so Springlock's go deep into his heart. And let's just read some of this. So basically, to give you some context, after he says that line, he stands back up and he tries to attack the animatronics because he still believes he can kill them. And that says, the yellow rabbit's body contorted, hunching inward. Afton howled like a tortured animal. His yowls winged through the building like a flurry of bats wheeling through a subterranean chamber. It's implied that his insides begin to collapse in on themselves. That's gotta be painful. And also, when Mike and Abby are running from the building, it describes that the building groans, so that means that the building can somehow feel William Afton's pain. And also, this book gives us one major detail of lore that the movie did not. We know that all of the animatronics are the children who are stuffed inside the suits, but what we didn't know is when they died. It turns out William Afton killed all 5 children in the same night. So what do I prefer, the book or the movie? Well, the movie is amazing. I've watched it 4 times, and I will definitely be watching it a lot more times. I've gotta say, the book just does even more than the movie did, and honestly, I really liked how it was more brutal and it gave us more character. So I definitely recommend you get this Fnaf book. Let me know if you've read this book or if you plan on reading it. And until next time, toodles!